Hello, Lotro Music community. I'm making this video to showcase you a maybe slightly different way to arrange songs for a 24-man or women orchestra. And I made a new version with a GUI of my converter, and I would like to showcase this with a simple example for you. So if you start this up, it opens 3 windows. The most important one is the band view. To this one, this is the old text editor. I will come later, but basically everything important happens in the graphical window here. And because we are going to make a 24-parter, it's probably best to pick something with a lot of tracks. I think In the Hall of the Mountain King would be a very nice starting example. Once you open the MIDI, you see a representation of all the MIDI tracks. I tried to copy the Fire Ferns coloring code in this MIDI. Sadly, it doesn't really find that those different instruments. I think they are all on the piano or something by default. But it also already recognized 2 drum tracks. And now you can start by clicking default, and then you would get for every MIDI track some kind of default instrument assigned to it, and it's all in the GUI already, or in the band view already. But this, for such a large piece, it's probably better to build this up one by one. So for that, you would drag instruments onto the band view. And of course, we want a cowbell and we want drums. And if you right-click those MIDI tracks, you get these previews as a piano roll. Very simple, but I think effective enough. So the second one kicks in later. The first one is also just a simple sample. So the drums are not very complex in this one. And of course, I looked at the MIDI up front. And I think track 13 would be nice for the theorbo, because we always need a bass. And then there's 2 quite important instruments for carrying the melody, which is 20 and 19. And once you hit the audience button, it generates an audio preview and starts playing it. The song kicks in a bit later. And you can jump around by left-clicking here into this window to different positions. So this sort of works already. Then the track 7 is also quite important, and I think in this case I like it on the Lonely Mountain Bassoon. And track number 18 has some kind of very quick sequences in it, and I want to use that to demonstrate you one of those features that this converter has. So this is some kind of a triller. Of course, maybe in this case we want to have it 1 octave higher. So right-clicking an assigned MIDI track gives you this dialog that allows you to adjust the volume and the pitch and do some other things. So this is, I think, already a bit nicer. But if you listen closely, especially these ramps, they are a little bit too fast for that instrument. So Lotro cannot really play that. And for that, and also because we are arranging for 24, so we have a little bit of space in terms of instruments to use. The idea is to play track 18 on 2 clarinets, but alternating. So this one would play the first part, and this one would play every other part. So now the tone will jump around between these clarinets. To give you a preview of that. You hear that it's jumping around in stereo left, right. And this allows you to play these faster trillers, and if these instruments stand close to each other, you will hear it as basically 1, but it will be able to play twice as fast as the game allows. So then track 5, I think, yeah, could work on a sprightly fiddle. It's jumping around, just... Well, the tones are a bit short for the sprightly fiddle to really sound. So there is a little trick to basically to force the converter to give the tones a certain minimum duration so they wouldn't cut off too early. I think that's a bit better. Of course, because it's a sprightly fiddle, we want to tune it a little bit down. You see, this is already too loud. So I turned it down a bit. Maybe even a bit more. And so on. So now you get the basic idea. Basically put in these instruments, move on MIDI tracks, adjust those MIDI tracks. You can also assign multiple MIDI tracks to one instrument. You can even assign the same one multiple times at different octaves if you want to. So there's lots of flexibility. I want to show you one more trick before I show you a possible final result. So we have 20 tracks. In the MIDI, we want to have something to play for 24 people. So one way to boost this could be to create some kind of an echo. So we play 2 theorbos, 2 times track 13. The second time will be a bit silent, or a bit less loud, and slightly delayed. 1 tat here is 50 milliseconds. So this will give the theorbo a little bit more of a bang. Should kick in. And so on. So now the job would be to one by one put in instruments, assign MIDI tracks until you are done. And this bar here also shows you the musical load, and whenever that gets red, it indicates that the piece might not be playable in Lotro without cutting out tones. And then you have multiple options to reduce the load. I will demonstrate that at the final. Oh, wait a second. Because I want to load the arrangement that I prepared. So this one is a possible arrangement for 24 people. This is all green here. But I'm using this split command here. So if you look at a MIDI track like for 7, you see this is always playing chords of 2 tones, maybe even something more in some positions. And by setting this split, it always takes only the first tone of a chord. The default is 0, then there's nothing separated, and the track will play all tones that are in the MIDI. And now here we have a little bit of an overload at the end. On the other hand, we have a better chord tone for the Lonely Mountain Bassoon, and so on. So basically I had to go through and split a lot of those tracks and always play only the first tone, the highest pitch tone, to make this fit into the Lotro music scheme, which is the main challenge when arranging for 24 people. The tone limit to be played at a certain time is 64. If 24 musicians play 2 tones, and there's also fade out, especially for the stringed instruments, the load can jump up quite quickly and you will never be able to hear what you intended in the final result. So this would be a possible arrangement for 24. We can listen a bit in. For the string instruments, especially for the Misty Mountain harp, because the nice tones of the Misty Mountain harps are only in the highest octave, you can restrict the pitch range. In this way it will be shifted around till it is in the pitch range. So then you only get these special clank tones from the Misty harp. Similar you can do with the harp if you wanted to, because the lower octaves you can't really hear. And just to demonstrate, I have here the lute and the Misty harp on the same track number 8. There are chords in 8. And I'm playing the first tone always on the lute and the second tone always on the Misty harp. That way they don't play too many samples at the same time, but still they all contribute something to the song. And once you are finished with this arrangement and you are happy with what you hear, then you can save the arrangement if you want to. To keep it, it's always recommendable to keep the original MIDI together with the arrangement if you want to change something later. ABC is a lossy format, so editing in ABC is never a good idea. And once you're done, because at the moment this is still in development, the easiest way to get an ABC from that is to pull this map from the band view. And this gives you a text file representing exactly what you see in here. This is also the input format to older versions of my converter. So you could take this map and plug it into the previous version that doesn't have a GUI and convert a song with that, because there are some features that you could do with these tracks that are not yet in this new version, which is a total rewrite in C++. So you would have to edit something. Hall of the Mountain King. And of course you want to change the name of the transcriber. Raspberry Tony might not be the best one. The tracks, the order of tracks at the moment is ordered by the distance to the audience, which you can rearrange in here if you want to. You can also rearrange it in the ABC afterwards. At the moment this one only offers the style of the rocks. The older versions also had TSO, which is more or less the songbook standard, the style for Meisterbaden and for Bauhau. Like I said, right now there's only the rock style, but you can just go into the ABC and edit the T lines. So then you would have to define a name for the ABC and hit transcode. This window here would actually, in very rare cases, show you a last line saying the ABC is garbage, because all these corrections couldn't push it into something that Lotro would accept to be played. But there's very few exceptions for very, very fast MIDIs. Anyway, now we created this. I could maybe open this in the text editor to show you how this looks like. You have the standard way of how an ABC is written. There is no information about measures, because that's the way that my conversion engine works. The speed is always 125 BPM with 4 beats per measure. And in principle, if you convert 2 or 3 pieces with my converter, you could cut and paste ABC tracks together to maybe make something much longer to be played in the game, where you would have like 3 songs, one after another, played in the game, but that's just a small detail. So I hope that I could demonstrate you that even though this is still in some kind of early stage, you can already use this to make ABC files for a rate of 24. You could even add more tracks if you wanted to. There's no physical limit apart from your computer memory to the amount of parts you could put in there. But the game limits us to 24 people, and the overload situation would not get better if you would arrange something for a 2-rate orchestra of 48 people and then The other issue is how to start that in a synchronous way. Anyway, the source code for this program is on GitHub. Link is below. Also the binary version that you can download and play with right now. I think I will only put the 64-bit version down there. Yeah, and I hope to get some comments, especially about this graphical way of representing the mapping for especially arranging for large groups of musicians. And also, I think having this stereo representation is something quite beneficial. So yeah, thanks for listening, and I would like to get some comments.